As the geopolitical landscape continues to shift dramatically, Europe finds itself in a precarious position regarding its support for Ukraine amidst the ongoing conflict with Russia. A recent report underscores the urgency of this situation, highlighting that European nations are racing against time to provide the necessary military aid to Ukraine, a task made increasingly difficult by changes in U.S. foreign policy under President Trump. Since Trump's administration signaled a pivot away from robust U.S. involvement in European security, European leaders have expressed growing concern over their ability to sustain military support for Ukraine. The coalition of European nations, once buoyed by U.S. backing, now grapples with the daunting challenge of arming Ukraine effectively. As the war drags on, the Ukrainian Parliament has taken steps to secure future aid by approving a deal that allows the U.S. a share of revenue from natural resources, including vital minerals. This move, while not a direct security guarantee, aims to ensure a continued flow of American arms and military assistance. "This gives us hope," commented Yari Chernov, deputy chair of the Ukrainian Parliament's Committee on National Security, Defense and Intelligence. He emphasized the urgency of the situation, noting that Ukrainian forces are running low on essential long-range missiles and ballistic air defense systems, most of which are manufactured in the United States. With the Biden administration's military aid set to expire this summer and Trump's reluctance to renew it, the future of military support appears uncertain. The stark reality is that European nations have collectively provided about half of the estimated $130 billion in military aid to Ukraine since the conflict began in 2022, while the U.S. has supplied the remainder. Recently, the U.S. approved Germany's transfer of 125 long-range artillery rockets and 100 Patriot air defense missiles to Ukraine, a critical lifeline given the current shortages faced by Ukrainian forces. However, as European leaders scramble to ramp up their own military production capabilities, industry experts caution that it could take a decade to fully operationalize assembly lines capable of meeting the demands. Europe is trying to replace the assistance that we lost from the United States, but unfortunately they don't have the capacity to do this, Chernov explained, underlining the urgency of Europe's predicament. The implications of dwindling military support are grave. Without adequate supplies, Ukraine risks losing territory and momentum in the conflict. Trump's recent threats of sanctions on Russia if it does not agree to an extended ceasefire highlight the complexities of the situation. As allies in Europe confront a dual challenge, rearming themselves while simultaneously supplying Ukraine. While European nations are making strides, Germany recently sent mine-resistant vehicles and artillery rounds, and Estonia pledged artillery shells. The military assistance pledged at NATO primarily focuses on future production rather than immediate needs. Chernov noted that approximately 800 companies in Ukraine are capable of producing weapons, with projections that Ukraine could generate $35 billion worth of weaponry if it secures $14 billion in investments from allies. Denmark has announced plans to allocate nearly $930 million in frozen Russian assets to bolster Ukraine's defense industry. As the war continues to evolve, Ukraine is adapting its strategies, reportedly producing millions of drones each year to offset artillery shortages. However, experts warned that the need for more sophisticated weaponry remains pressing. They would like more cruise missiles and more ballistic missiles, but for the time being, they're going to have to fill the gap, said Matthew Saville, Director of Military Sciences at the Royal United Services Institute. The unfolding narrative of European support for Ukraine illustrates a critical juncture in international military collaboration. With American aid uncertain and European capabilities stretched thin, the outcome of this conflict could reshape not only the future of Ukraine but also the geopolitical balance in Europe for years to come. As discussions around military support continue, the world watches closely, anticipating how these dynamics will influence the broader conflict with Russia and the security landscape of Europe. In a series of significant developments this weekend, the political landscape in the United States and abroad has been shaped by both domestic policy discussions and international diplomacy. These events have sparked conversations about the future of governance, civil liberties, and geopolitical stability, underscoring the interconnectedness of today's global issues. On the domestic front, an emerging independent movement is gaining traction as it aims to disrupt the traditional two-party system. This initiative seeks to prevent either the Democratic or Republican parties from achieving a majority in the House of Representatives. Proponents argue that a viable third option could provide voters with more choices, reflecting a growing dissatisfaction with the current political climate. "We are at a crossroads," stated a spokesperson for the movement. "Voters are tired of being forced to choose between two parties that often don't represent their interests." This sentiment echoes across various demographics, suggesting that many Americans are eager for a political shift that aligns more closely with their values. In another alarming development, discussions among former Trump administration officials have surfaced regarding the potential suspension of habeas corpus, a legal safeguard against unlawful detention. This proposal has raised significant concerns among civil rights advocates and legal experts who warn that such a move could erode fundamental liberties. Suspending habeas corpus is a dangerous precedent that undermines the very foundation of our democracy, cautioned a prominent civil rights lawyer. As the nation grapples with issues of law and order, the implications of this discussion could reverberate through the political landscape, fostering further polarization. Meanwhile, on the international stage, the recent U.S.-mediated ceasefire between India and Pakistan has raised hopes for a more peaceful relationship between the two nuclear-armed neighbors. The ceasefire, intended to halt border skirmishes and restore dialogue, reflects a significant diplomatic effort amidst long-standing tensions. However, experts caution that the sustainability of this agreement remains uncertain. While this ceasefire is a positive step, it is crucial that both nations commit to ongoing dialogue to address the underlying issues, remarked a regional security analyst. The potential for renewed conflict looms if either side perceives violations of the agreement, highlighting the fragility of peace in the region. As these narratives unfold, the implications for both domestic and international policy remain profound. The growing independent movement could shift the dynamics of U.S. politics, while discussions surrounding civil liberties could provoke widespread debate about governance and individual rights. Additionally, the success or failure of the India-Pakistan ceasefire will be closely monitored, as it could set a precedent for future diplomatic efforts in other conflict-prone areas. Looking ahead, it is clear that the coming weeks will be pivotal. As the independent movement gains momentum, it may force established parties to reconsider their strategies and engagement with voters. The discourse surrounding civil liberties will likely intensify as advocates push back against any perceived encroachments on fundamental rights. Furthermore, the international community will be watching closely to see if the ceasefire holds, as it may provide insights into broader regional stability in South Asia. The interplay of these developments illustrates the complexities of governance in an increasingly interconnected world where local actions can have global ramifications. In the ever-evolving landscape of global politics, the interplay between military strategy and diplomatic maneuvering remains a focal point of concern. Recent reports suggest that former President Donald Trump, who once promised to swiftly conclude conflicts in Afghanistan and Syria, is now grappling with the complexities that these wars entail. In private conversations, Trump has expressed significant frustration over the slow pace of resolution, highlighting the challenges that leaders face when navigating entrenched geopolitical conflicts. Trump's initial commitment to extricate the U.S. from these conflicts quickly resonated with many voters who were weary of prolonged military engagements. However, as the intricacies of international relations unfold, the reality of achieving peace has proven far more complicated than anticipated. Observers note that the former president's frustration may stem from the realization that military solutions often require more than just a swift withdrawal. They demand comprehensive strategies that account for regional dynamics and the interests of various actors involved. Meanwhile, Europe is stepping up its pressure on Russia to negotiate a ceasefire in Ukraine, threatening sanctions related to the controversial Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline. As reported, European officials are leveraging economic measures to nudge the Kremlin towards a diplomatic resolution, underscoring the interconnectedness of energy security and geopolitical stability. The potential sanctions signal a growing resolve among European nations to take a more assertive stance in the face of Russia's military actions, further complicating the delicate balance of power in Eastern Europe. Adding to the regional tensions, Lebanon finds itself at a pivotal moment as efforts to diminish Hezbollah's influence begin to materialize. Recent initiatives aimed at enhancing airport security are viewed as a critical step in loosening the militant group's grip on the country. Analysts suggest that bolstering security at such vital points of entry can significantly weaken Hezbollah's operational capabilities and restore some degree of sovereignty to the Lebanese government. This strategy reflects a broader trend in Middle Eastern politics where local authorities seek to reclaim control from powerful non-state actors. As these developments unfold, the international community watches closely, recognizing the potential ramifications for global stability. The evolving narratives in the Middle East and Eastern Europe highlight the intricate web of alliances and enmities that characterize modern geopolitics. The future remains uncertain, but the interplay of diplomacy, military strategy, and economic pressures will undoubtedly shape the trajectory of these conflicts. In conclusion, the challenges faced by leaders like Trump in addressing long-standing military conflicts, combined with Europe's strategic maneuvers against Russia and Lebanon's efforts to reclaim authority from Hezbollah, illustrate the complexities that define contemporary global politics. As nations grapple with these multifaceted issues, the quest for peace and stability continues, compelling leaders to navigate a landscape fraught with obstacles and opportunities alike. Looking ahead, the outcomes of these situations will likely set the stage for future diplomatic engagements and international relations, to in a significant development for global trade dynamics. High-level negotiations between the United States and China commenced in Geneva on May 10, 2025. These talks, which come amid a backdrop of escalating tariffs and economic tension, are pivotal in seeking a resolution to the ongoing trade war that has affected both nations and the broader global economy. Leading the Chinese delegation is Vice Premier He Lifeng, while the U.S. team is headed by Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, who was accompanied by U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer. The urgency of these discussions is underscored by the precarious economic climate, with President Donald Trump recently indicating a willingness to reduce tariffs on Chinese exports, a gesture aimed at fostering a more amicable negotiating atmosphere. High-level economic and trade talks between China and the United States began in Geneva, reported China's state news agency Xinhua. Although it offered limited details regarding the specifics of the negotiations. The backdrop to these high-stakes talks includes Trump's recent statements suggesting a potential reduction of tariffs from a staggering 145% to 80%. While this proposal was largely seen as a negotiating strategy rather than a definitive policy shift, it reflects the administration's growing recognition of the unsustainable nature of the current tariff structure. Bessent himself described the existing tariff landscape as a de facto trade embargo, emphasizing the need for both sides to create a conducive environment for more extensive negotiations beyond mere tariff adjustments. Notably, the Chinese Communist Party's nationalist publication The Global Times echoed calls for the U.S. to demonstrate sincerity by lifting tariffs. It highlighted that any fruitful resolution hinges on Washington's ability to undertake meaningful actions rather than mere rhetoric. The publication referenced a Chinese proverb, suggesting that the party responsible for causing a problem should be the one to resolve it, reinforcing Beijing's demand for reciprocal concessions. As these discussions unfold, there is a palpable concern in Beijing regarding the implications of a US-UK trade deal, which may serve as a template for excluding China from key supply chains. The urgency is further emphasized by China's recent imposition of anti-dumping duties on Indian imports, a move interpreted as a warning to other nations regarding their alignment with the US in trade matters. Data released from China prior to the talks indicated a resilient trade performance, with exports showing an unexpected increase of 8.1% in April, largely due to heightened shipments to third countries. This resilience underscores the intricate web of global trade relationships that continue to evolve in the face of U.S. tariffs. As the negotiations progress, analysts caution against expecting immediate breakthroughs. Besant has already tempered expectations, indicating that the focus of this round of discussions will primarily be on tariff reductions rather than a comprehensive trade agreement. The implications of the talks extend beyond bilateral relations, as they are likely to influence global economic stability and the future of international trade norms. Looking ahead, the outcome of these negotiations will be closely monitored by various stakeholders, from businesses to governments worldwide. The potential for a recalibration of trade relations could signal not just a shift in U.S.-China dynamics but also reshape how nations approach trade agreements moving forward. As both sides prepare to resume discussions, the global community awaits developments that could significantly impact economic landscapes across the globe. In a world increasingly defined by environmental crises and geopolitical tension, California continues to be a focal point for both natural beauty and socio-political struggles. Recent headlines from the state reflect a diverse array of challenges and triumphs, from the awe-inspiring ecosystems of the Channel Islands to the contentious political landscape surrounding immigration and trade. Among the most intriguing stories emerging from California is the discovery of a vibrant underwater ecosystem near the Channel Islands, often referred to as California's Galapagos. This remote archipelago is not only a haven for researchers but also a paradise for divers, showcasing a rich marine biodiversity. The preservation efforts in this region have led to remarkable transformations in its ecosystem, allowing species like seals and bass that can grow to the size of grizzly bears to thrive. Scientists emphasize the importance of maintaining these habitats, both for their ecological value and for the insights they provide into marine conservation efforts globally. On a different note, the socio-political landscape in California is as turbulent as it is dynamic. A recent court hearing involving the Menendez brothers, known for their infamous murder case, has garnered significant attention. The brothers have been granted a resentencing hearing that could potentially lead to their release, igniting discussions about justice and the complexities of the legal system. Their case, which has captivated the public for decades, underscores the ongoing debates surrounding crime punishment and redemption in American society. Meanwhile, the ongoing trade wars have cast a shadow over historic Chinatowns across the nation, including those in California. Many immigrant-run businesses are facing severe economic challenges exacerbated by tariffs and the lingering effects of the pandemic, as longtime community staples fight for survival. The impact of these tariffs is being felt not just locally but nationwide, highlighting the interconnectedness of global trade and local economies. In the realm of governance, California has witnessed a controversial appointment that has raised eyebrows across the political spectrum. Clint Curtis, a Florida-based election skeptic known for his dubious claims about vote manipulation, has been appointed to oversee elections in a conservative county within the state. This decision has sparked concerns about the integrity of the electoral process, raising questions about the qualifications and motivations of those in charge of safeguarding democracy. The recent announcement that Los Angeles will host the opening ceremony for the 2028 Summer Olympics across two venues, the historic LA Memorial Coliseum and the state-of-the-art SoFi Stadium, marks a momentous occasion in the city's sporting history. This unprecedented move aims to blend the rich heritage of the city with its modern advancements, setting a precedent for future Olympic events. In the midst of these developments, the plight of individuals caught in the crosshairs of immigration policy remains a pressing issue. Newark's Mayor Ras Baraka has become a prominent figure in the fight against an immigration detention center operated by the Geo Group. Baraka's recent arrest during a protest against the facility has drawn national attention, further fueling the conversation around ICE detention practices and the treatment of detainees. His commitment to transparency and accountability in immigration enforcement resonates deeply with many communities who feel marginalized by current policies. As California navigates these complex challenges, the interplay of environmental preservation, socio-political activism, and cultural identity continues to shape its narrative. Looking ahead, the outcomes of these various stories will likely influence not just the state but the broader national discourse on immigration, trade, and environmental stewardship. As these issues unfold, they will undoubtedly define California's role as a leader in innovation activism and resilience in the face of adversity. In a political landscape often defined by swift transitions and calculated strategies, the recent revival of Joe Biden has stirred a mixture of intrigue and skepticism among Democrats and Republicans alike. After a lengthy hiatus from the media spotlight, the former president has embarked on what some are calling a rehabilitation tour. However, rather than bolstering his legacy, many within his party view this resurgence as a potential liability, providing a ripe opportunity for Republican opponents to capitalize on perceived weaknesses. Biden's first major foray back into public discourse came shortly after he marked the traditional 100-day period when former presidents typically refrain from criticizing their successors. In a BBC interview, he took aim at Donald Trump's foreign policy while simultaneously attempting to frame his own legacy, particularly in light of VE Day. His next public appearance saw him alongside his wife Jill on ABC's The View, a platform that was likely intended to showcase a more personal side of the former president. However, both events were overshadowed by concerns regarding Biden's mental acuity and fitness for office. Critics within the Democratic Party have expressed frustration with Biden's decision to return to the public eye. Democrats I talked to almost uniformly wished that he would quietly retire, noted Jonathan Allen, co-author of Fight, a book chronicling Biden's decline. Allen highlighted that some party members feel Biden's presence has cast a shadow over their prospects, while others are genuinely concerned about the damage his continued public engagement may inflict on his reputation and the party's future. The fallout from Biden's 2024 debate performance against Trump, perceived as disastrous, prompted his withdrawal from the presidential race, leaving Vice President Kamala Harris to carry the party's banner during the election. Many Democrats now believe that had Biden stepped aside earlier, the party could have had a stronger chance. Biden's remarks during his recent interview, suggesting that he was not surprised by Harris's loss and implying that his own presence on the ticket would have changed the outcome, have not been well received. Critics argue that such comments reflect a disconnect from the realities that ultimately led to the party's defeat. The Democratic Party's introspection following the election has been prolonged and contentious, yet it has not produced a cohesive understanding of the factors behind their loss. As the Biden question looms, large party insiders worry that the former president's persistent presence could hinder any attempt at renewal or rebranding. "He is a liability, which is why Trump brings him up so much," remarked a seasoned political strategist in Washington. The sentiment is that Biden's public persona, rather than aiding the party, could become a focal point for Republican attacks, particularly as Trump has frequently invoked his predecessor's name in his critiques. As if to punctuate these concerns, new revelations about Biden's time in office continue to surface, raising further questions about his cognitive abilities and decision-making processes. Books detailing behind-the-scenes dynamics during his presidency, such as the upcoming Original Sin, President Biden's Decline, are expected to present unflattering accounts of Biden's leadership, potentially igniting a reckoning among Democrats. Chris Whipple, author of Uncharted, emphasized that Biden's recent media tour does not resonate with the prevailing discontent among voters, stating, "I don't think he's done himself or the Democratic Party any favors with this tour." The Democratic Party now faces a critical juncture. With rising stars such as Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Bernie Sanders capturing public attention and invigorating the left, the establishment grapples with how to reconcile its past with the future aspirations of its more progressive base. Until the question of Biden's role is decisively addressed, the party risks remaining in a state of uncertainty, unable to regain momentum or public confidence. As the political climate evolves, the implications of Biden's return to the limelight will undoubtedly unfold in the coming months. The question remains whether this tour will ultimately serve as a stepping stone for recovery or a further entrenchment of the challenges that lie ahead for the Democratic Party. As the 2026 midterms approach, all eyes will be on how the party navigates this turbulent sea of uncertainty and whether it can craft a narrative that resonates with an increasingly disillusioned electorate.